So, I'm sitting here trying to figure out where exactly it all went wrong, but I think I've finally pinpointed the beginning. It all started with those damn Uber rides. My wife, Emily, never used to take Ubers that much. We don't have kids, so we've always shared the car between us pretty easily. But suddenly, she started taking Ubers more often, especially for random trips to the grocery store, gym, or work meetings she claimed popped up unexpectedly. At first, I didn't think much of it. Emily is one of those people who hates waiting for anything, so I figured she just got impatient waiting for me to come home and preferred the convenience of the ride-hailing app. I'd always see the same car pulling up. Some black Toyota Camry, nondescript, always clean, nothing out of the ordinary. But after a while, I noticed that it was the same driver every time. A guy named Matt. He'd wave at me through the window, give me a nod, and I didn't think anything of it. I mean, it's just her Uber driver, right? But in hindsight, I should have paid more attention. Emily would get in the car all chipper and flirty. I chalked it up to her being overly friendly, the kind of person who could talk to anyone. But soon, I noticed that she was always in a suspiciously good mood when she came back from one of her errands. She'd laugh a little too hard when telling me about how funny Matt was or how he always had a new story to tell her during their rides. She even started joking about how Matt was basically her personal chauffeur. I should have known that something was off. But, like an idiot, I ignored the small warning bells ringing in the back of my head. One day, I got stuck at work late, and she ended up having to Uber to a dinner we were supposed to attend together. Of course, Matt showed up to pick her up. When I finally arrived at the restaurant, she seemed flustered but brushed it off as nothing. Looking back, I realized she didn't expect me to show up that night. Whatever had been building between her and that scumbag had probably escalated by then, but I was clueless. She smiled, hugged me, and acted like everything was perfectly normal. But it wasn't. Things really started getting weird after that dinner. Emily began taking even more Uber rides, even for short trips that didn't really make sense. She'd say things like, "Oh, I don't feel like driving today," or, "Matt's already nearby, I'll just have him swing by." It felt like every day she had some new excuse to call him. But the strange part wasn't just the frequency of the rides, it was how distant she became. I'd ask her how her day was, and she'd give me short, vague answers, like she wasn't even paying attention. She started spending more time on her phone, constantly texting or checking notifications, always smiling to herself like she was in on some secret joke. And when I'd ask her who she was talking to, she'd just say, "Work stuff," or "Just catching up with friends." I'll admit, I wanted to trust her. We had been married for 5 years, and I thought we had a solid relationship. No kids, no major issues, just two people building a life together. But it's like she flipped a switch and became a completely different person. She started coming home later and later, always with some bullshit excuse about being held up at work or meeting a colleague for drinks. I'd ask her why she didn't invite me to join, and she'd snap back with something like, "Oh, come on, you wouldn't enjoy it, it's just boring work talk." It wasn't just the lies that started to pile up, it was her attitude. She'd get snippy and defensive over the smallest things. If I asked her why she took an Uber to the gym instead of driving, she'd roll her eyes and say, "God, why do you care so much? Are you trying to control me now?" Or if I questioned why she was spending so much time on her phone, she'd accuse me of being paranoid, like I was the one with the problem. It was maddening. I was starting to feel like I was losing my grip on reality, like maybe I was being too suspicious. But every time I caught her in a lie, she'd gaslight me, turning the situation around so that I was the bad guy for even asking. One night, after another one of her long work meetings, she came home a little too tipsy, her lipstick slightly smeared, hair messy. I asked her point-blank where she had been, and she immediately got defensive. "Why do you always have to interrogate me, Mike? Can't I just go out and have fun without you breathing down my neck?" I tried to keep calm, but I asked her why she didn't text me back for hours. And that's when she pulled the classic move. She turned it all around on me, saying, "Maybe if you weren't so boring, I wouldn't have to go out all the time. You're so damn insecure, it's pathetic." That one stung. But instead of fighting, I backed off. I was still trying to save our marriage, still believing that maybe she was just going through a phase. Little did I know, that phase had a name, Matt. Looking back, there were so many signs. I should have trusted my gut, but I didn't. And that was my mistake. Because soon, I'd catch them in the act, and everything I thought I knew about my wife, about our life together, would be shattered in the worst way possible. A few weeks after that blow-up, things had reached a boiling point. Emily had become more erratic, sneaking out at odd hours, saying she had late-night work projects or girls' nights that I somehow was never invited to. I tried to stay calm, to give her the benefit of the doubt. But it was killing me inside. Every night she was out, I'd sit at home, staring at my phone, waiting for a text or a call that never came. Then one evening, things finally blew up. Emily told me she had another late work dinner. It was a Friday night, and while most people were winding down for the weekend, she was apparently heading out for another mysterious night. This time, though, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. The way she quickly got ready, almost too eagerly, wearing her favorite red dress, the one she used to wear on our date nights. As she stood by the door, clutching her purse, I asked her, "Who are you meeting?" "You never mentioned this before." She didn't even look at me, just brushed her hair back and said, "Oh, it's just work stuff. Don't wait up." And before I could say anything else, she was out the door. I don't know what came over me, but something inside me snapped. I grabbed my keys and decided to follow her. I know, it sounds crazy, but I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what was really going on. I had to know if it was just in my head or if she was actually cheating. I trailed her car for a while, keeping my distance. She wasn't heading toward the usual spots she'd go to for work dinners. Instead, she was driving into a quieter part of town, somewhere I'd never heard her mention before. My heart was pounding in my chest, my palms sweating as I gripped the steering wheel, trying to keep calm. Then, about 10 minutes later, her car pulled over to a random street corner. And sure enough, that same black Toyota Camry pulled up behind her. I watched as she climbed out of her car and slipped into his. I couldn't see much from where I was, but the way she smiled at him, that flirty, familiar smile I hadn't seen in months, told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't just some casual Uber ride. This was something more. I parked a little way down the street, waiting, watching. They sat there for a few minutes, talking, laughing, as if I didn't even exist. My stomach churned, my hands clenched into fists. But I kept my cool, determined to get proof of whatever the hell was going on. Then, something I never expected happened. The car didn't move. Instead, I saw her lean across the seat, her lips meeting his. At that moment, I felt like my entire world had crashed down around me. I wanted to storm over there, rip the door open, and confront them. But something inside me stopped. I wanted more. I needed to know just how far this went. So I waited. What happened next made my blood boil. They didn't drive away to some hotel or secluded spot. No. They didn't even have the decency to hide it. Right there, in his damn car, they started making out. And then, it escalated. She climbed over the console and into his lap. I could see them clearly now, their bodies tangled in the front seat as things heated up. I could hear her faint moans even from where I was sitting. And that's when it hit me. My wife was having sex with her Uber driver in a parked car, on a public street, while I watched. The shock froze me for a moment, but then the rage took over. I couldn't believe how brazen, how disgusting she was being. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. This wasn't some mistake. This was a full-blown affair, right under my nose. I sat there for a few more minutes, my heart pounding out of my chest. Every second that passed felt like a knife twisting deeper into my gut. Watching her with him, so careless, so comfortable, it was clear to me that this wasn't their first time. I could feel the anger rising inside me, like a fire that couldn't be extinguished. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to confront her, confront them. Without thinking, I jumped out of my car and stormed over to the Camry. They were too wrapped up in each other to even notice me approaching. My blood was boiling. I yanked the door open, and there they were, half-naked, Emily in his lap, her dress hiked up around her waist, both of them caught in the act like it was no big deal. For a split second, there was this stunned silence. They froze, like deer caught in headlights, not knowing what to do or say. Emily's eyes widened in shock, and Matt just stared at me, wide-eyed and speechless. "What the hell is this?" I yelled, my voice shaking with rage. Emily scrambled off Matt's lap, trying to pull her dress back down, her face flushed with embarrassment, but not enough to look guilty. Not at first. Mike, it's not what it looks like, she stammered, her voice high-pitched and panicked. I can explain. But I wasn't having it. Not after what I'd just seen. Explain what? You were literally having sex with your Uber driver in a goddamn parking lot. Matt, the coward that he was, didn't say a word. He just sat there, looking like he wanted to disappear into his seat. Emily started scrambling to get herself together, adjusting her dress, her face flushed not with shame but with irritation. It was like she was mad at me for catching her in the act. The nerve of this woman. Mike, you don't understand, she snapped, her voice trembling more from anger than fear. It's not like that. You've been so distant lately, I didn't know what else to do. I stared at her, dumbfounded. Distant. Are you serious right now? So this is what you do when I'm distant? You run off and screw the first Uber driver who gives you attention. Matt was still silent, frozen in the driver's seat, probably praying I wouldn't start throwing punches. Honestly, I didn't care enough about him to waste my energy. My focus was on Emily, the woman I had loved, trusted, and shared my life with. And now, I was standing in the street, watching her unravel every piece of that life with one lie after another. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she wailed, turning the situation around like she was the victim. It just happened. You're never around, you're always working, and I needed someone to talk to. Matt was there for me when you weren't. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was acting like she was justified, like I had driven her to this. Talk. You needed to talk? So that's why you were screwing him in his car, right? Because you needed to talk. At this point, the neighbors were starting to notice the scene. I could see curtains twitching and shadows moving in the windows around us. But I didn't care. Let them watch. Let them all see who Emily really was. The more I stood there, the more I realized that this wasn't just a one-time thing. No, this was a pattern. The lying, the manipulation, the gaslighting, it was all part of who she had become. And there was no fixing it. She kept trying to defend herself, flailing with weak excuses. It was just a mistake, Mike. It didn't mean anything. I shook my head, my voice eerily calm now, the rage having turned into something cold and final. A mistake? You've been lying to me for months. And now you're trying to make this my fault. She didn't answer that. She couldn't. Instead, she stood there, fuming, as if she was somehow the one who had been wronged. And that's when I knew I was done. There was no saving this. No going back. I'm filing for divorce, I said flatly, watching her face twist from shock to fury in an instant. You can't be serious, she shrieked, her voice piercing the quiet street. You're going to throw away everything because of one little mistake? You threw it away, I said, my voice low. And I'm not sticking around to watch you destroy the rest of it. Without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there in the middle of the street, her lover still sitting dumbstruck in the car. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The door to our life together had slammed shut, and there was no reopening it. The days after that confrontation felt like a blur. I was running on autopilot, moving through life as if nothing had happened, but inside, everything was shattered. I called a divorce lawyer the very next morning, and that was the moment when reality truly hit. This was real. My marriage, the life I had built with Emily, was over. There was no going back now. Emily, on the other hand, refused to believe it. She kept calling, texting, leaving voicemail after voicemail, saying we needed to talk, that she made a mistake and could fix things if I just gave her a chance. Her messages oscillated between desperate apologies and venomous accusations, like I was the one who had destroyed our marriage. Mike, you need to stop overreacting, one voicemail said. I told you, it didn't mean anything with Matt. It's you I want. I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of this. A big deal? She couldn't even see the gravity of what she had done. It wasn't just the physical betrayal, it was the months of lies, the manipulation, and the emotional distance she had created between us, all the while making me feel like I was going crazy for suspecting something was wrong. And now, she had the audacity to act like I was the unreasonable one. Her hysterical behavior escalated after I filed the divorce papers. She showed up at my workplace, unannounced, pleading for another chance. I could hear her yelling at the receptionist from my office before she barged in, tears streaming down her face, mascara smudged. It was a scene straight out of a bad soap opera, and I could feel every eye in the office on us. "Mike, please, let's talk," she begged, her voice shaky. "I didn't mean for things to get so out of hand. I just felt so lost." I stared at her, feeling a mixture of anger and pity. Lost. She had felt lost, so her solution was to hop into bed with the first guy who gave her attention? She hadn't felt lost. She had felt bored. And instead of talking to me, instead of working on our marriage, she chose to betray me. "There's nothing left to talk about," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've made my decision. It's over, Emily." She exploded. "You can't just walk away from me like this. After everything we've been through, you think you can just end it because of one mistake? You're pathetic, Mike. Absolutely pathetic." Her words stung, but I didn't flinch. I knew this version of Emily too well by now, the one who would do anything to twist the situation, to make herself the victim and me the villain. It was a defense mechanism, a way to avoid the guilt she knew she should be feeling. But I was done playing her games. She stormed out of the office, but I knew this wasn't the last I'd hear from her. Emily wasn't the type to let things go easily, especially when she wasn't in control. And she was about to lose control of everything. I just didn't realize how far she'd go to get it back. The fallout was only beginning. I thought that after Emily's meltdown at my office, she would get the hint and leave me alone. I couldn't have been more wrong. If anything, her behavior escalated to a level I never thought possible. The texts, the calls, they came in at all hours of the day and night, so much so that I had to block her number. But that didn't stop her. She started emailing me instead, alternating between apologizing profusely and blaming me for everything. "Mike, I swear I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. You're the love of my life, and I don't know how to live without you. Please, don't throw us away," one email read, full of flowery promises to change, to be better. But then, just a few hours later, another email would come, dripping with venom. "You're such a coward, Mike. You're going to regret this. No one else will ever put up with you like I did." It was exhausting, emotionally draining, to the point where I almost considered meeting with her just to shut her up. But I knew better. Meeting with Emily again would only give her the chance to manipulate the situation further. I had to stay strong, even if it felt like my life was unraveling. The worst part, though, was the rumors. I hadn't realized it at the time, but Emily was spreading lies about me, telling our mutual friends that I had been neglecting her, that I had pushed her into Matt's arms because I was so cold and distant. She painted herself as the victim, some poor wife who had made one mistake because her husband had emotionally abandoned her. I started hearing about these rumors through friends, people reaching out to check in on me, asking if it was true. It made me sick. The manipulation wasn't just aimed at me anymore. She was trying to destroy my reputation, to make herself look like the wounded party. And I could tell some people were starting to believe her. One of my closest friends, Dave, called me after hearing Emily's side of the story. "Look, man," he said cautiously, "I don't want to get in the middle of this, but Emily's been telling people that you've been distant for a while, that maybe you weren't as invested in the marriage. Is that true?" I couldn't believe it. This was exactly what she wanted, to make me look like the bad guy, the reason for everything falling apart. "No, Dave, it's not true," I said, feeling the frustration bubble up in my chest. "I've been busting my ass trying to hold things together. She's the one who was screwing her Uber driver." I could hear Dave's stunned silence on the other end of the line. "Jesus, man. I didn't know. I'm sorry. But it didn't matter. The damage was already being done. People were starting to choose sides, and I could feel the weight of her lies pressing down on me. Emily was a master at playing the victim, and I was slowly becoming the villain in a story she was rewriting to suit her needs. But she wasn't done. Not even close. One night, I came home to find her sitting on my front steps, her face tear-streaked and red. She must have found a way to track me down after I blocked her on everything. I was too tired for this, too emotionally drained to deal with her theatrics again. "Mike, please," she said, standing up as soon as she saw me. "Please just talk to me. I know I messed up, but you have to believe me, it wasn't all my fault. I felt so lonely. You were never there." I sighed, gripping my keys tightly in my hand. "Emily, I don't care anymore. I really don't. We're done. You need to move on." That's when the switch flipped again. The pleading turned to anger in an instant, her eyes narrowing as she crossed her arms. "Oh, so that's it? You're just going to throw me away like trash? After everything I did for you? After all the sacrifices I made?" I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "Sacrifices? You cheated on me, Emily. With a guy you met while taking Ubers to your work meetings. Don't pretend like you're the victim here." Her face twisted into something ugly, something I hadn't seen before. "You're going to regret this," she spat, her voice low and dangerous. "You think you can just walk away from me? I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are." She stormed off after that, but the words lingered in the air, hanging over me like a threat. I didn't know what she was planning, but I knew it wouldn't be good. Emily wasn't someone who took losing lightly. And in her mind, she was losing everything: her marriage, her image, her control. And she was about to do whatever it took to get that control back. After that night, things went from bad to worse. Emily wasn't just harassing me anymore. She was actively trying to ruin my life. I started hearing from people at work, people I barely knew, asking if the rumors about me were true. Apparently, she had started spreading lies even further, claiming that I was abusive, that I had cheated on her, that I was the one who had destroyed our marriage. She turned herself into a victim so convincingly that some of my friends started distancing themselves from me, unsure what to believe. It wasn't just rumors, either. Emily somehow got a hold of my work email, sending long, hysterical messages to my boss about what a terrible husband I was, claiming that I had mental health issues and that they should be careful about keeping me employed. I had to explain the whole situation to my boss, who, thankfully, saw through her lies, but it was humiliating. Every part of my life was being affected by her desperate attempts to stay in control. But the worst came about a week later. I hadn't heard from Emily in a few days and thought maybe, just maybe, she had finally decided to let go. I was wrong. I came home from work one evening to find my apartment door unlocked. My heart immediately sank. I knew I hadn't left it that way. I stepped inside cautiously, and that's when I saw it: Emily, sitting on my couch, looking like she'd been there for hours. She had broken in. "What the hell are you doing here?" I demanded, my voice shaking with both anger and fear. She stood up, slowly, like she had all the time in the world. "We need to talk, Mike. You can't just keep ignoring me." "I'm calling the cops," I said, pulling out my phone. "No, you're not," she replied calmly. "Because if you do, I'll tell them you hit me. I'll tell them you've been abusing me for years. And who do you think they'll believe? Me, the crying wife, or you, the angry husband?" Her words sent a chill down my spine. She had completely lost it. This wasn't just about her trying to save the marriage anymore. This was about power, about her not being able to handle the fact that she had lost control. And now, she was threatening to destroy me completely if I didn't give her what she wanted. I stood there, trying to stay calm. "Emily, you need to leave. This is breaking and entering." She took a step toward me, her eyes wild. "You're not listening to me, Mike. We can fix this. We can start over. You just have to stop being so stubborn and—" I cut her off. "There's no fixing this. You need help. This isn't normal." Her face twisted in fury. "You think I'm crazy? You think I'm the problem here?" She grabbed a vase from the coffee table and threw it across the room, smashing it against the wall. "You're the one who's broken. You're the one who ruined everything." I backed up toward the door, not wanting to provoke her further. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice steady. "And if you're still here when I get back, I'll call the police." She didn't say anything as I walked out, but I could feel her eyes burning into my back. I wasn't sure what she was capable of anymore, and that terrified me. After that night, I knew I had to do something drastic. The divorce process was dragging on, partly because Emily kept stalling, refusing to sign the papers, and partly because she was determined to make my life a living hell in the meantime. But I was done being a victim of her manipulation. I decided to get a restraining order. It wasn't easy, especially since she hadn't physically harmed me, yet. But after explaining everything to the judge, from her breaking into my home to the threats she had made, I was finally granted one. She was no longer allowed to come near me, contact me, or show up at my work. The moment I got the restraining order, I felt like I could finally breathe again. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a step in the right direction. I sent it to her lawyer and made sure she knew that if she violated it, there would be serious consequences. Of course, Emily didn't take it well. I started getting emails from burner accounts, clearly her, telling me how I was destroying her life and how she would make sure I paid for it. But I ignored them. She was desperate, and I wasn't going to let her drag me down with her anymore. Finally, after months of back and forth, Emily signed the divorce papers. The process wasn't easy. She fought for every little thing, even trying to get alimony despite the fact that she was still working full-time. But in the end, it was over. The day I got the final paperwork, officially ending our marriage, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It wasn't just the end of a toxic relationship, it was the end of her control over me. I could move on with my life, free from the lies, the manipulation, and the constant emotional abuse. In the months after the divorce, I started to rebuild my life. I moved to a new place, changed my number, and slowly cut ties with anyone who was still connected to Emily. It wasn't easy. She had managed to turn some people against me with her lies, but the people who mattered stuck by me. It took time, but I eventually found peace. I started dating again, cautiously at first, but with the understanding that not every relationship would end the way mine with Emily had. I learned to trust again, slowly but surely. The last time I heard from Emily was about a year after the divorce was finalized. She sent me a long, rambling email, apologizing for everything she had done and asking if we could reconnect and try to be friends. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I've since moved on with my life, and I rarely think about Emily anymore. But every now and then, when I pass a black Toyota Camry or hear someone mention Uber, I'm reminded of how easily trust can be broken, and how important it is to stand up for yourself when someone tries to manipulate and control you. Looking back, I can see how I missed the warning signs, how I ignored the gut feelings telling me something was wrong. But I've learned from it. I've learned to trust myself more, to set boundaries, and to walk away from anyone who tries to make me question my own reality. Now, I'm in a much better place. Free from the lies, the betrayal, and the toxic manipulation. I'm stronger for having gone through it, but I'll never let myself be in a situation like that again. To anyone going through something similar, let me tell you this: you deserve better. Don't let anyone make you feel like you're the problem when they're the one who's been lying, cheating, and manipulating you. Get out, get free, and rebuild your life. It's not easy, but it's worth it. I promise you, it's worth it. Thank you for visited my YouTube channel. Your support, likes, and comments truly inspire me to create even more engaging content. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. You're a part of this amazing community, and I'm thrilled to share my stories with you. See you in the next video on YouTube.